Hello, everybody. This is Christine, the business strategist with the Dentist Advisors team, and I'm here again to dive a little bit deeper into the productivity pearls, the 5 points of productivity that we talked about. And today we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the first of those 5 points of productivity, which was about bodies in the chair, your patient base, your patient count. And we're going to dive into this on a different level, looking at the different phases of a dental practice. So we'll go from growth to stability to expansion and dive into the practice data numbers a little bit deeper for each of those areas.
Consult an advisor or conduct your own due diligence when making financial decisions. General principles discussed during this program do not constitute personal advice. This program is furnished by Dentist Advisors, a registered investment advisor.
So we'll start out with growth. And obviously, when you're starting a new practice, whether you're hanging out your shingle, taking over another practice, every patient is a new patient at that point. And when you're in growth mode, it is all about getting more people in the front door. So first and foremost, looking at every patient being an opportunity, every patient having potential value of who knows based on what your productivity could be with those patients. But the value right now is just addition of bodies in the chair. So at this point, your primary focus is really marketing, attracting those new patients, both from internal and external. We talked about that on the last seminar. And really, there's just no end to the number that you could and should be seeing. So right now, every patient counts, grow, grow, grow. Here we grow, growing up to roughly 2,000 patients of record is where we would call that stage of a practice of growth. So at this point, it is spending most of your marketing dollars externally because there's very few patients, particularly if you're starting your practice from scratch, that patients of record are few and far between to get started with. So right now it is about investing significantly financially. And again, as I mentioned in our last call, with professional guidance from a marketing firm on getting yourself and your business out in the marketplace, digitally, within the community. Yes, growing internally with referrals is important, but you got to get those bodies in the door in the first place. Within that growth phase, you do also want to remember that when they do come in, you want them to come back. So again, at this phase of your business development, retention, reappointment, getting them in to see you, coming back again, committing to that next dental treatment, number one, but also their next hygiene appointment. So re-care of your patient base is critical. And within the first 6 months, making sure that you've established a re-care protocol, that you have, whether that's a good old-fashioned phone call or you have reports within your software that you're running for patients that are due, for patients that have appointments, perhaps utilizing a third-party service or within your own team to contact those patients with phone calls, with texting services. That's a very common way to make sure that your patients are coming back again and contacting for their next hygiene appointment. So the recall, once they've come into your practice, is critical so that they stay. At this point, you are all about growing that patient base. And until you're at roughly 2,000 patients, you're not able to consider yourself done with that growth phase. Another data point to look at with your patient base, particularly if you're starting from scratch, that 200 patients of record is when you can confidently say you have enough patients to fill 1 day of hygiene, assuming 8 patients a day and 1 hour patient visits. So that's also a critical number to keep in mind as you're looking to add team members. 1 day of hygiene is roughly 200 patients of record. So as you're growing your patient base, you can now estimate and plan adding hygiene days to meet the supply and the demand of your patient base. So the demand of the appointments and having enough supply of hygiene hours to maintain that patient base. So those are some deeper ideas and thoughts about what happens at that growth phase with your patient base. The next phase is when you're pretty established. You've gotten a full schedule. You're feeling productive, you're feeling profitable, you've got perhaps one, if not two hygienists here with you full time, you have maintained and grown your patient base to those roughly 2,000, 1,800, 2,000, 2,200 patients of record, you made a successful practice. So you are established, you're productive, you're profitable. So now what is my patient base? What's the value and important numbers to look at with your patient base here? Here, a new data point to be looking at are two that I really want to focus on. Number one, your lost patients. So if we remember that 25 to 30 new patients of record is what you want to have for an established, maintaining the growth and health of a business for every solo practitioner, 25 to 30 new patients in a general practice on a monthly basis is a great number to have because some of your patients will be lost. And they are lost as defined that they've either chosen to leave your practice, they have physically called you or contacted you and said, hey, I've moved, I've chosen another location, whatever the reason is, they have opted out of being your patient actively, or they have simply fallen out of their regular hygiene recare cycle. And depending on how you define that, that's between 18 and 24 months without an actual visit in your practice. Those patients become inactive or lost just from not being contacted, not being a part of your office. So that lost figure is necessary because, for example, if you're gaining 30 new patients a month, but losing 40 of your existing patients for whatever reason, now you've got a negative net gain that month. So again, this now is important to be thinking about from a maintenance size of your patient base. I'm going to be losing some patients for valid reasons, but I also don't have to lose them from inactivity. So this is also, we'll go back to that 200 patients of record filling one day of hygiene. So the question to ask yourself is, when is the last time you added hygiene hours? If it's been a year or more since you've added hygiene hours, you are likely losing as many, if not more, that you're attracting. So that open back door is a common phrase that we hear in consulting, that you've lost as many or more patients than what you've gained. So you're constantly keeping that roughly 2,000 patients. Fine if that's the model you want to work in. But if you're looking to grow your patient base, grow the new patient numbers, continue to maintain the patients that you have, paying attention to that lost patient amount is critical. The other data point to look at here, now that you are an established successful practice, is the annual patient value. So thinking about, and different dashboards can track this for you, or you can do the math on this, the number of patients that you see in a year and what average production is done per patient. This number becomes, I won't say critical, but important to know as you're looking at potentially, as we get to the next phases of your business, are you going to grow again? Are you looking to expand? Are you looking to perhaps change your personal service mix? So when you know what the annual patient value is, you can also better predict how many new patients you need based on how much production they have per month, per year. So if you're looking to grow yourself productivity-wise, say $10,000 a month, and your annual patient value is $1,000, then every month, if you're bringing in 10 new patients, you should grow that additional $10,000. So looking at that annual patient value, once you become established and have been in that maintenance of your patient, you're out of the growth mode, now you can start tracking, and that annual patient value becomes important as you start planning for the next phase or two of your business. So the next two phases we'll talk about together, where you can either differentiate. First of all, you can stay where you're at and just ride that wonderful wave of things are beautiful, things are great, I'm okay gaining and losing equal amounts of patients, and I'm completely satisfied right here. That's fantastic. And you can ride your career out on this level. You can also make some decisions of, I want to do something different. So I may choose as a provider to focus more so on a certain procedure, certain type of dentistry that I want to do. And in that case, then who's going to take care of the general dentistry that you may be giving up to pursue a different area of specialty? So if that's the decision to differentiate, now your patient-based numbers again become critical in terms of that annual patient value and what is the production I want to grow with my new procedures. So, for example, many doctors say they wanted to add implant services to their service mix, and they've taken the additional training. They're feeling confident in the service they can provide. So then we need to do a little bit of math, and very difficult to do on a podcast or webinar. But the idea, think about if you wanted to grow $20,000 in implant casework. Well, that's great. And if $5,000 is the annual case, then you need to grow 4 implant cases that month. So now it's going to really affect where am I going to find that differentiated group of patients that are looking for the services I want to do and at the production value I want to grow. This is going to guide your marketing budget to grow and target the patients for the differentiated services that you want to do. So this is an additional marketing budget, most likely because you do not want to lose your presence in the community for the general dentistry that you do, but adding probably another 2% of your collections to a specific, differentiated, targeted marketing message. From there, you'll want to track, again, the number of consults that come in, the closure rate, so that you can accomplish that 5 additional cases to produce that additional $20,000. We'll talk more about case presentation and acceptance on another webinar coming up. But that's the thought process as you're looking to differentiate. The second side of that coin is then fantastic. You're able to grow this type of dentistry, but what about the general dentistry and how are you managing that? Does that require potentially adding another doctor? And if that's the case, then we're talking about expansion. Expansion can mean a lot of different things. Expansion in your hours, expansion in your service mix, as we just talked about, expansion in adding operatories, expansion in adding providers. So all of those expansion opportunities and ideas really put you back into growth mode. So here we are looking at, again, adding more marketing dollars to the messaging that's out in the community, internal focus, external advertising, adding an additional 25 to 30 new patients to support that new doctor that's coming on as you're expanding another provider, particularly as you're aligned with the differentiation. So now the patient base we're back into growth mode. So it's worth investing in from the marketing side. It's worth tracking. And again, knowing that annual patient value will give you even more specific data on how many new patients at that annual patient value do you need to grow your associate or second provider to the productivity that they want to accomplish and feel good about. So now we're back adding in and back into that growth mode when you've moved to the expansion phase of your practice. And that last phase that we're going to talk about a little bit is that transition and exit phase. This is an area where many times, unfortunately, we've seen doctors kind of take their foot off the gas and think, I'm just going to coast for the next few years because then I'll be ready to sell. So growth is not necessary. And growth may not be necessary, but what really is important is maintaining that patient base. So again, we're going to go back to looking at the total patient base, analyzing the lost patients on a monthly basis against the new patients that are coming in. That net gain of patients still needs to be there in terms of showing that there's opportunity that if I were to purchase your practice, I could not just maintain, but potentially grow. Most sales occur, and if I'm purchasing a practice, I'm looking to be able to grow that business, not just maintain it. So really at the transition, potential future short-term exit strategy is about not taking your foot off the gas, not forgetting that you need to analyze for every 200 patients, do I have enough hygiene hours? Am I maintaining the supply of time and available appointments to take care of my patient base? Because retaining that patient base has value at the time of sale. So thanks for spending a little bit more time with me today as we dove deeper into that first point of productivity, the patient base. Talk to you again soon.